The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of Buckingham Palace as Catherine hurried down the grand corridor, her heels clicking against the polished stone. She clutched a small velvet box in her trembling hands, her heart racing with anticipation and nervous energy. Today was the day she had been preparing for months. The annual Royal Heritage Ceremony, where she would officially receive the Duchess crown, a symbol that would mark her permanent place in the royal hierarchy. Catherine had worked tirelessly to earn this moment. She had spent countless hours studying royal protocol, attending charity events, and building relationships with the people of Britain. The public adored her genuine warmth and natural grace. Newspapers praised her dedication to children's causes and mental health awareness. Even the Queen herself had privately expressed her approval of Catherine's contributions to the royal family. The ceremony was set to take place in the palace's most prestigious room, the throne room, where generations of royalty had been honored. Catherine had visited the room earlier that week to rehearse her movements and ensure everything would proceed flawlessly. The ancient crown, adorned with sapphires and pearls, had been carefully cleaned and prepared for the occasion. It represented not just honor, but responsibility and service to the crown and country. As Catherine approached the preparation chamber, she noticed unusual activity in the hallways. Servants whispered among themselves and quickly dispersed when they saw her approaching. The atmosphere felt different somehow, charged with an energy she could not quite identify. She dismissed her concerns, attributing the strange feeling to her own nervousness about the important day ahead. In the preparation room, Catherine's personal assistant, Margaret, helped her into the ceremonial gown that had been specially designed for the occasion. The midnight blue silk dress featured intricate embroidery that told the story of British heritage through delicate threadwork. As Margaret fastened the final button, Catherine caught her reflection in the ornate mirror and felt a surge of pride and gratitude. Meanwhile, in another wing of the palace, Camilla paced back and forth in her private study, her expression troubled and her mind racing with conflicting emotions. She had received an unexpected visit from a palace advisor the previous evening, who had shared information that turned her world upside down. According to ancient royal protocols that had been recently discovered in the archives, there was a question about the legitimacy of Catherine's claim to receive the Duchess crown. The advisor had explained that due to a centuries-old law that had never been officially repealed, the crown should rightfully go to the senior female member of the royal family who had served the longest in an official capacity. This interpretation of the law would make Camilla the rightful recipient, despite the original plans for Catherine to receive the honor. Camilla felt torn between her loyalty to the family and her own sense of justice. She had indeed served the royal family for many years, enduring public scrutiny and criticism while supporting Charles through his most difficult periods. She had worked quietly behind the scenes, never seeking recognition or praise, always putting duty before personal desires. The weight of this revelation pressed heavily on Camilla's shoulders. She respected Catherine deeply and had no desire to cause conflict within the family. However, the legal advisor had made it clear that ignoring this protocol could set a dangerous precedent and potentially cause constitutional issues in the future. As the morning progressed, guests began arriving at the palace for the ceremony. Dignitaries from across the Commonwealth, members of Parliament, and representatives from various charitable organizations filled the elegant reception areas. The media had been granted limited access to document this historic moment, and photographers positioned themselves strategically to capture the proceedings. William arrived early, dressed in his formal military uniform, beaming with pride for his wife's achievement. He had been instrumental in supporting Catherine's preparation for this role and had witnessed firsthand her dedication and natural ability to connect with people from all walks of life. In his mind, there was no one more deserving of this recognition than Catherine. Charles and Camilla appeared together in the main reception area, greeting guests and ensuring everyone felt welcomed. To outside observers, everything appeared normal and celebratory. However, those who knew Camilla well might have noticed the slight tension in her smile and the way her hands fidgeted with her jewelry. Subtle signs of the internal struggle she was experiencing. The palace staff made final preparations in the throne room. The crown sat regally on its ceremonial pillow, surrounded by fresh flowers and elegant candles that cast dancing shadows on the walls. The room buzzed with quiet efficiency as every detail was checked and double-checked to ensure the ceremony would proceed without any complications. Catherine took a few moments alone in the preparation room to center herself and reflect on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She thought about her children and the example she wanted to set for them about service, dedication, and using privilege to help others. She felt ready to accept the responsibilities that came with the crown and eager to expand her ability to make a positive impact on the world. As the appointed time approached, the palace bells began to ring, signaling that the ceremony was about to begin. Guests filed into the throne room, taking their designated seats according to strict protocol. The atmosphere was formal yet warm, filled with anticipation and respect for the traditions being honored. Camilla made her way to her assigned position near the front of the room, her decision still weighing heavily on her mind. She had spent the morning in prayer and contemplation, seeking guidance about the right course of action. The legal documents tucked discreetly in her purse seemed to burn with significance, representing a choice that could change everything. The Archbishop arrived to officiate the ceremony, carrying himself with the dignity and gravitas that such occasions demanded. He had performed many royal ceremonies throughout his career, but each one carried unique significance and required careful attention to both tradition and the specific circumstances of the day. Catherine appeared at the entrance to the throne room, and a hush fell over the assembled guests. She looked radiant and composed, every inch the future queen that the British people had come to love and respect. Her presence commanded attention not through force, but through the genuine warmth and grace that had become her trademark. As she began her slow, ceremonial walk toward the throne where the crown awaited her, Catherine felt a profound sense of purpose and destiny. This was more than a ceremony. It was a commitment to a lifetime of service and an acceptance of the trust that the royal family and the British people had placed in her. The moment had arrived for what everyone believed would be a beautiful and straightforward ceremony, a celebration of Catherine's contributions and her bright future as a senior member of the royal family. None of the assembled guests could have imagined the dramatic turn of events that was about to unfold. Catherine approached the ornate throne with measured steps, her eyes fixed on the gleaming crown that awaited her. The assembled guests watched in reverent silence as she moved through the ancient ritual that had been performed for centuries. Her heart pounded, but her exterior remained calm and regal, just as she had practiced countless times. The Archbishop began the traditional blessing, his voice echoing through the magnificent room with words that had sanctified royal ceremonies for generations. Catherine knelt gracefully before the throne, her silk gown pooling around her like ocean waves. This was the moment she had dreamed of since joining the royal family, the official recognition of her place and purpose. As the Archbishop reached for the crown, preparing to place it upon Catherine's head, a sudden commotion stirred near the front of the room. Camilla rose from her seat with unexpected determination, her face pale but resolute. The legal documents in her hand rustled as she stepped forward, causing confused murmurs to ripple through the audience. "Stop," Camilla's voice cut through the ceremonial atmosphere, firm despite the tremor of emotion underlying her words. "There is a matter of law that must be addressed before this ceremony can continue." The Archbishop paused, his hands hovering over the crown, uncertainty flickering across his weathered features. Charles shot his wife a look of complete bewilderment. Having no knowledge of what was unfolding, the guests began whispering among themselves, sensing that something unprecedented was happening. Catherine remained kneeling, confusion and concern replacing the serene confidence she had worn moments before. Her eyes met William's across the room, and she saw her own bewilderment reflected in his expression. This was not part of any ceremony they had rehearsed or discussed. Camilla approached the throne area, her steps deliberate but heavy with the weight of what she was about to reveal. She had made her decision during those final moments of watching Catherine's graceful approach. Duty to the crown and constitutional law had to supersede personal feelings, no matter how difficult the consequences might be. "Your Grace," Camilla addressed the Archbishop directly, her voice gaining strength as she committed fully to her course of action. "I have discovered documentation that calls into question the legal basis for this ceremony. According to the Royal Succession and Honors Act of 1694, which has never been formally repealed, the Duchess crown must be awarded to the senior female member of the royal family by marriage, who has served in an official capacity for the longest continuous period." The silence in the room became deafening, Catherine's face flushed with embarrassment and confusion as she struggled to understand what was happening. She had never heard of this ancient law, and clearly neither had anyone else involved in planning the ceremony. The Archbishop looked to Charles for guidance, but the future king appeared as stunned as everyone else in the room. Palace officials began frantically checking their own documentation, trying to verify or dispute Camilla's claim. The carefully orchestrated ceremony had suddenly become a legal challenge with no clear resolution. Camilla continued, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her actions. I have served this family in an official capacity for over 15 years, longer than any other current female member by marriage. While I take no pleasure in bringing this forward today, constitutional law cannot be ignored, regardless of personal preferences or prior arrangements. Catherine slowly rose from her kneeling position. Dignity intact, despite the shocking turn of events. Her training in handling unexpected situations served her well as she maintained her composure. Though inside she felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Years of preparation and anticipation were crumbling around her. The legal advisor who had originally brought this information to Camilla's attention stepped forward from his position near the back of the room. He carried additional documentation that supported Camilla's claim, having spent days researching the matter to ensure its validity before presenting it to her. The law is indeed still in effect, he confirmed to the Archbishop and the assembled officials. Our legal team has verified that this statute was never officially repealed or superseded by more recent legislation. While it may seem archaic by modern standards, it remains constitutionally binding. William pushed through the crowd, his face a mask of controlled anger and protective instinct. He reached Catherine's side just as she stepped away from the throne, and placed a steadying hand on her arm. His military bearing helped him maintain outward calm, but his eyes blazed with fierce emotion. The Archbishop, faced with an unprecedented situation, called for a brief recess to consult with palace legal counsel. The guests remained seated, unsure whether to leave or stay, caught between protocol and curiosity about this dramatic development. During the recess, heated discussions erupted among palace officials. Some argued that the ceremony should continue as planned, dismissing the ancient law as irrelevant to modern circumstances. Others insisted that constitutional law was absolute, regardless of inconvenience or embarrassment. Catherine found herself surrounded by supportive courtiers and family members, all expressing outrage on her behalf. However, she surprised many by asking for space to process what had happened. Her grace under pressure only highlighted the injustice of the situation, making Camilla's actions appear even more shocking to those who witnessed them. In a private alcove, William struggled to contain his fury. This was supposed to be Catherine's day of triumph, a celebration of her contributions and future role. Instead, she had been publicly humiliated by someone they had trusted and considered family. The betrayal cut deeply, especially given the public nature of the embarrassment. Camilla retreated to another area of the palace, where Charles confronted her with barely controlled anger. He demanded to know why she had not discussed this matter with him privately before taking such drastic action in public. The strain on their relationship was immediate and obvious, adding another layer of family drama to the constitutional crisis. I only learned of this myself yesterday evening, Camilla explained to her husband, her own emotions finally beginning to show. I struggled with the decision all night, but can you imagine the scandal if we proceeded illegally, and this information came out later? The monarchy itself would be questioned. Charles found himself torn between loyalty to his wife and his deep affection for Catherine, whom he had come to regard as the daughter he never had. The situation created an impossible division within the family, with no clear path forward that would not result in lasting damage to relationships. The media representatives present began making urgent phone calls to their editors, recognizing that they were witnessing a major royal scandal unfold in real time. The story would dominate headlines around the world, regardless of how the immediate crisis was resolved. As the recess continued, Catherine made a decision that surprised everyone who knew her. Rather than retreating or demanding her rights, she approached Camilla directly, requesting a private conversation. The two women stepped into a side chamber, away from the chaos they had inadvertently created. I need to understand, Catherine said quietly, her voice controlled but heavy with hurt. Was there truly no other way to handle this? Could this not have been resolved privately? before today?" Camilla met Catherine's gaze, seeing the pain she had caused reflected in the younger woman's eyes. For a moment, her resolve wavered as she considered the personal cost of her actions, but she had made her choice, and there was no turning back now. The crown sat abandoned on its pillow in the throne room, a symbol of honor that had become the center of an unprecedented constitutional and family crisis. The ceremony that was meant to celebrate unity and tradition had instead exposed deep divisions and ancient laws that threatened to tear the royal family apart. In the private chamber, Catherine and Camilla faced each other with raw honesty that had been impossible in the public ceremony. The walls seemed to hold their breath as two women who had once shared mutual respect now stood divided by duty, law, and bitter disappointment. "I discovered this information only yesterday," Camilla repeated, her voice softer now, tinged with regret. "I barely slept, knowing what it would mean. But Catherine, if we had ignored this, and it came to light later, the damage to the monarchy would have been catastrophic. The press would have accused us of covering up constitutional violations." Catherine absorbed these words, her analytical mind working through the implications even as her heart ached with the loss of her dream. She understood constitutional duty, but the public humiliation felt like a wound that would never fully heal. "You could have spoken to me privately first. We could have found a solution together." "And what solution would that have been?" Camilla asked gently. "The law is clear. There was no compromise that would have satisfied both legal requirements and your expectations. I chose to be direct, rather than prolonging the agony with false hope." As their conversation continued, the sounds of heated discussion drifted from the main areas of the palace. Legal experts had been summoned to provide definitive interpretation of the ancient statute. Palace officials debated whether modern precedent could override historical law. The confusion and conflict spread through every level of the royal household. Meanwhile, William paced the corridor outside, his protective instincts in overdrive. He had witnessed Catherine's grace under the most difficult circumstances, but he also saw the hurt she tried so hard to hide. His own sense of betrayal ran deep. Camilla had been family to him, someone he had learned to trust and respect over the years. Charles found himself in an impossible position, caught between supporting his wife's legal argument and protecting Catherine from further humiliation. The future king understood constitutional law, but he also recognized that relationships and trust within the royal family had been severely damaged, possibly beyond repair. The archbishop emerged from his consultation with legal advisors, his expression grave. The ancient law was indeed valid and binding. Despite the awkwardness and poor timing, Camilla's claim was legally sound. The ceremony could not proceed as originally planned without violating constitutional principles that had governed the monarchy for centuries. When this decision was announced to the assembled guests, the reaction was immediate and intense. Some attendees expressed outrage at the disruption of what should have been a joyous occasion. Others debated the merits of following ancient laws versus modern expectations. The unity that had characterized the beginning of the ceremony had completely dissolved. Catherine and Camilla returned to the main area, both women displaying remarkable composure despite the emotional turmoil they had just experienced. Catherine's dignity remained intact, but those who knew her well could see the subtle signs of her inner struggle. Camilla carried herself with quiet determination, having made peace with the necessity of her actions. The archbishop announced that, given the legal complexities that had emerged, the ceremony would need to be postponed while constitutional experts provided formal guidance. The crown would remain in royal custody until proper procedures could be established and followed. As guests began to disperse, William approached Camilla with controlled fury evident in every line of his posture. His words were measured, but cutting. "You have destroyed something beautiful today. Catherine deserved better than this public humiliation. Our family deserved better. Ow. And. Ow. 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 Ow." Camilla met his anger without flinching, though pain flickered in her eyes. "I understand your anger, William. I would feel the same in your position. But constitutional law exists for reasons that go beyond our personal feelings. The monarchy's legitimacy depends on following proper procedures, even when they are inconvenient. "Don't lecture me about duty," William replied, his voice low but intense. "Catherine has served with more grace and dedication than anyone could have asked for. She earned that crown through her actions, not through technicalities in ancient documents." The confrontation between William and Camilla became a focal point for the broader tensions that had erupted throughout the palace. Staff members, officials, and remaining guests found themselves taking sides in a conflict that seemed to have no clear resolution. Catherine approached the abandoned crown for one final moment, studying the ancient symbol that had represented so much hope and purpose just hours before. She touched the pillow gently, not with bitterness, but with a kind of farewell to the dream that had sustained her through months of preparation. The media contingent captured every moment of the drama, recognizing that they were documenting a historic crisis in the modern monarchy. The images of Catherine's dignified disappointment and the family division would soon appear on front pages around the world, sparking debates about tradition versus progress. In the following days, constitutional lawyers and historians would debate the validity of Camilla's claim and the broader implications for royal protocol. Legal scholars would examine whether ancient laws should supersede modern arrangements, while public opinion polls would reveal deep divisions about who deserved the crown. Catherine's supporters organized petitions and demonstrations, arguing that years of dedicated service should outweigh technical legal interpretations. Camilla's defenders pointed to the importance of constitutional law and the dangerous precedent that would be set by ignoring established legal principles. The royal family found itself more divided than it had been in decades. Dinner conversations became strained affairs, with underlying tensions affecting every interaction. The children sensed the conflict even when adults tried to shield them from the details. Charles worked desperately behind the scenes to find a compromise that might heal the family rifts while respecting legal requirements. He consulted with constitutional experts, seeking precedents or interpretations that might allow for a resolution that honored both Catherine's service and legal obligations. William and Catherine presented a united front publicly, but privately they struggled with feelings of betrayal and loss. The ceremony had represented more than personal recognition. It had symbolized their full integration into the royal family's future. That sense of belonging had been shattered in a single dramatic moment. Camilla found herself increasingly isolated within the family structure. Despite the legal validity of her position, the cost of her decision became clear as relationships she had spent years building began to fracture under the weight of resentment and misunderstanding. The crown itself remained in its secured location, neither worn nor formally awarded to anyone. It had become a symbol of division rather than unity, representing the complex intersection of law, tradition, family loyalty, and personal ambition that defined modern monarchy. As weeks passed, the immediate shock of the ceremony's disruption began to fade, but the underlying issues remained unresolved. The royal family faced a choice between strict adherence to ancient law and the flexibility needed to maintain family harmony and public support. The future of the Duchess crown, and perhaps the future of royal family relationships, hung in the balance as all parties struggled to find a path forward that could restore trust while respecting the constitutional principles that governed their lives. The devastating moment when William walked in to find his world changed forever had set in motion events that would reshape the royal family for generations to come.